Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Dawn Wiggins. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I am joined by Dagmar Gattel, SEO expert. We are here today to talk about the codependency triangle, and more importantly, how you can interrupt the pattern that happens when you're on the codependency triangle. So we're grateful whether you're watching live or you're watching the recording. Enjoy the talk, and please feel free to comment or question. I'm going to give Dagmar a moment to introduce herself. Hi. Thanks, Dagmar, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Dawn, and thank you so much, everybody, to watching live or to the recording. My name is Dagmar Gattel, and I'm an SEO consultant, coach, and strategist, and I help entrepreneurs and small business to turn their expertise into global business. And what's interesting with this topic, because a lot of times we think of it's only in our personal life, right? But in reality, it can be totally in our business or with our clients or with our business partners. So I'm so excited to hear more about that.
Thanks, Dagmar. Yes, I'm a grateful client of Dagmar. She's really helped me to become more comfortable with reaching out to all of you and sharing the message that's so important. And so I'm grateful to have her as my co-host and to help support me in reaching my goals and sending all of you the love and support. So today's topic is the codependency triangle. And what I want you guys to know about this particular triangle is that it has several names that you may have heard of in the past. It's also known as the drama triangle and the victim triangle. There are a lot of people that have written quite a bit about this topic, and there's a lot of great resources out there. One of my favorites is written by Lynn Forrest, and her article is called The Three Faces of Victim. It's an absolutely wonderful article. What I want to do today is to talk a little bit more about getting off of the triangle rather than spending a lot of time discussing what it looks like when you're on the triangle. So there's, like I said, there's a lot of great topics about this out there. For today's talk, we're going to focus on how this is called the codependency triangle. So codependency, it's very popular in pop psychology. Basically, what I want you to know about it for today is that this is something that happens when the way I feel, my mood, my thoughts are linked somehow with yours. Meaning, if you have a thought, belief, or idea, then I feel affected by it. If you are experiencing a particular mood, if you're in a bad mood, then all of a sudden I'm in a bad mood. It's like an enmeshment of two people or two things that has a difficult time seeing separation or being able to have my own set of thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that are separate from yours and to not be triggered if they're different. A lot of times, people get offended when other people don't think the way they do or believe the way that they do, and so they want to convince you, no, you really need to believe what I believe. That's a form of codependency. So for today's talk, that's kind of the working definition that we're using when we talk about codependency: enmeshed thoughts, feelings, or beliefs.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, right? Because it comes back to what you teach me: self-esteem, self-love. You don't have any problems if somebody has another belief, if you are peace in your core, if you have peace in your core. If you feel insecure, and then this can like shake your whole world if somebody doesn't believe the same what you believe.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting to see all of this connected with each other.
One of the examples that I use quite frequently when I'm trying to teach people about how they're affected by other people's thoughts, feelings, or beliefs, I'll use it with you. If I said to you today, Dagmar, that is a beautiful polka dotted shirt you're wearing. Mm-hmm. Would you?
Thank you.
But it's not polka dotted, it's blue. And so
I just listen to you and I like how you say it.
And so if someone said, but the point is that if someone said you had a polka dotted shirt, you wouldn't be offended by that, because so clearly, like, you don't need to have that opinion about or judgment about, polka dots versus a blue shirt. It's not that important. You can tell your shirt is blue. It's not polka dotted. It's something you're confident about. It doesn't bother you. It doesn't really matter. And so it's this
Right.
thing, like if I were to say, make a comment about your spiritual beliefs or your political ideals or whatever it is, if you're confident in your own beliefs or you're open-minded in general, then my comment isn't going to affect you the way that it might affect somebody else who's on the codependency triangle.
Yeah. And I think too, Joanne, I just thought about it. It makes a huge difference if you feel peace in yourself or if you're already angry. Like what we had the topic last week with judgmental people. If you're already angry, and then it's just a drop what you perhaps needed. So it's really interesting where you are and then how it affects you. And it can be the same words, but depending on the situation you are in or the feelings you are in, it makes such a huge difference.
Dagmar, you nailed it. One of the ways that you can tell if you're on the triangle is based on if you're emotionally triggered or you're feeling intense feelings of anger, fear, sadness, or shame. Those can be huge triggers, or when you get triggered to experience those levels of feeling, it's likely that you're going to make your way around the codependency triangle. So you're right on.
Interesting.
Something to keep in mind, because it's a triangle, there are 3 points on the triangle. And the 3 points are persecutor, rescuer, and victim. And victim is the bottom point. Like I said, I want to focus more on the solution than the triangle itself, but I do want to give you guys a little bit of an overview. So
say it again, say the 3 again so I can write it.
Persecutor, rescuer, those are the top 2 points, and then victim on the bottom. Persecutors and rescuers act in a way that are superior to victims. So the victim, that's why the victim is on the bottom point of the triangle. However, all 3 roles ultimately are functioning from victim. So even if you're moving around the triangle and you make a stop at rescuer or persecutor, ultimately you're going to end up at victim. That's
great.
No, and when I bring this topic up with folks, it's a challenging topic because people do not like to identify with being in the role of victim. It's not a very pretty picture. So that's one of the really most important things that you can do if you're watching this video is stick with it, be patient, and be willing to learn about how you're doing this, because I do it, you do it, we all do it. There's no one out there that is a perfect human being, and this is just the nature of what we do when we get our feelings hurt or our ego gets involved with things. So it's really just a learning process. Try not to get too attached to the labels that we're using, because they really are labels. That's not really the most important part. The most important part is how you can change the habit. So.
When you say how they change the habit, meaning how I can break through the codependency triangle?
Yes. Yes, that is absolutely what I mean. So I want to first teach you a little bit about how you can know when you're on the triangle, because that's really the first step to dealing with this habit or pattern of behavior, is understanding and accepting that you're on it. Because how can we change something if we don't recognize it and we're not willing to accept that it's happening? So I'm going to teach you some specific behaviors that you can look for, because I think when we have specific behaviors, it's a lot easier to relate or identify what it is that's going on for you. So if you're on the triangle, most likely coming from the position of victim, but possibly the others you might relate to, you are probably very often giving advice, making excuses, blaming other people. You're probably frequently emotionally triggered by those intense feelings of anger, fear, sadness, or shame, inadequacy. You might feel like life is unmanageable. You might hear yourself say, I can't, quite frequently. You might believe that you know the answers to everything and people ought to listen to you. You might feel misunderstood by people around you, and you might feel easily offended. You might think that people around you are incompetent, You might be a sensitive individual and your feelings might be easily hurt. So I've just given you a long list of ways that this can show up. This is by no means, you know, if you have 3, you're on it. If you have 10, you're definitely on it. It's just, that's a list of things that you can kind of check for. Even if it's just one, it's something worth exploring because it's probably a pattern or a habit attached to it that will make your life easier and more loving if you can break that habit or pattern. So those are just some specific examples.
That's pretty powerful. While you're describing that, I have several people I see in front of me hearing these things. And when I say to them, don't tell yourself, you create your own misery and you create your own world, because the world, that's not reality. It's really just how you see the world, but it doesn't mean that's how the world is. But I don't feel I'm breaking through them. So then it comes from the perspective, they think I'm whatever, I think I'm better, or I think I'm preaching to them, or they hate positivity and it's faked and whatever. So it's interesting when you describe that, and I'm very curious how to get out of that.
I'm going to tell you that next. So if you identify with any of those behaviors that I just listed, now it's time to take responsibility, accept that this is happening and that you're playing a role in it, and make a choice to break the habit. So now that you've recognized it and you're working on accepting it, I'm going to tell you what to do next so that you can get off the triangle and into your heart. So the first thing to do once you've accepted and recognized is to stop. That means stop giving advice, stop trying to change people's opinions, stop blaming others. Here's a big one. Stop trying to fix other people's problems. That was a huge one for me, the advice and the fixing. Stop gossiping. Stop complaining about your life. Stop with the self-pity. Stop saying, I can't. Stop doubting yourself. Stop doubting other people. Stop thinking you know it all. These are the kinds of things that if you want to break the habit of the codependency triangle, you have to interrupt. And you may be saying to yourselves right now, how do I just stop? And the short answer is, first you make a decision to do it. Okay, I'm going to undertake this mission. And then when you catch yourself doing them, you make a conscious choice to do something differently. So if you notice, oh, I'm gossiping right now, then you can stop what you're doing and exchange that behavior for a more positive one. Like focusing on yourself or saying kind things. If you notice that you're blaming someone else and you recognize it, then you can stop blaming and you can consider a way that you can take responsibility for just your part. A lot of people are afraid that if they let go of blame, that it means they're going to condone somebody else's behavior. And this isn't about anybody else. This is about you and your life and the reality that you want to create for yourself. So when you recognize any of those specific behaviors, the key thing to do is to stop and exchange it for a positive one.
Yeah, and I like what you said, because first you said recognize it. And you need to recognize what you say and who you are to stop it. Because if not, it's so in you, you don't recognize it anymore. You don't think you are negative. You think, like, I hear sometimes, oh, I'm just sharing my feelings, where I think, are you kidding me? That's not feelings. Like, this is whatever, judgment or however you want to see the world, or bitching or whatever. But this is not sharing your feeling. Your feeling comes from a clean source, a pure source. But this is going poor me direction. So I like that you said first you need to recognize it to stop it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always tell people that, you know, I'll give them a solid 10 to 30 minutes to sit in their self-pity, and then I'm going to give them a nudge. It's time to move on. You know, we're all entitled to feel however we want to feel. We all get the dignity of our choices in regards to our feelings. However, if you're sitting in my office, I'm going to nudge you. Because self-pity is really the source of a lot of this triangle behavior. Self-pity is closely linked to the feeling of shame or inadequacy. And Lynn Forrest, when she's writing about the three faces of victim, she calls the triangle the shame generator, because it's a way that we tend to habitually repeat situations in life that cause us to feel inadequate or poorly about ourselves. So we're in essence trying to shut down the shame generator, which means we have to be willing to let go of self-pity. So we, you know, like you said, feelings coming from a clean place, anger, fear, sadness, shame, joy, those are all very appropriate feelings, but when we let them linger, when we get stuck in them, is when they become things like self-pity, resentment, rage, depression. So we want to process our feelings in a helpful way, and then let them go ahead and move on, so that we can pick up more positive thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, I think this and what I experience with this codependency triangle, right? It's very easy, and I have to stop myself. It's very easy to go back into the past and pick something where you were right, or you were mistreated, or felt mistreated, or you got hurt, and now you bring it into the presence, and now you warm it up, you bring it back to living again, and now you make it worse. So I try not to go into the past, not to pull anything from the past. The past is gone, and I don't care. Really try to focus on the current situation and to find a good solution for that.
I appreciate what you just said so much, Dagmar, because I spent my probably entirety of my 20s warming up things from the past, as you said. They, you know, they could have been stone cold.
It's easy.
And I pulled them out and I put them in the microwave and I warmed them up over and over and over again. And I was creating my own misery at that point, because it's true. Forgiveness and letting go is about recognizing that the past cannot be changed unless you have a wormhole that I don't know about. So you're absolutely right. It is about letting go and not rehashing things from the past. So thank you so much for that wisdom. So the next thing that you need to know in order to change the cycle of the codependency triangle is to start. So first we said recognize and accept, then I said stop. Now I'm telling you to start. And what I want you to start doing is taking responsibility for your choices. And that's a little bit about what Dagmar just highlighted, that I'm the one that gets to control whether or not I rehash the past. I'm the one that can take responsibility for what happens to me today in this minute. And that no one else is responsible for me and my experience of life in this minute except for me. Not the past, not the future, today, right now. Taking responsibility for what my life looks like and how I co-created it. So it's time to start taking responsibility. It's time to start working with a therapist, a coach, or a spiritual leader, anyone who you can utilize to help you with this growth and change process. It's time to start letting go of negative beliefs that are holding you back or limiting you, or holding you in that place of resentment or self-pity. It's time to start changing the voice in your mind, which means you have to really be conscious of what your mind is saying. You know, how often do I catch myself saying, oh, Dawn, that was so stupid. Why did you do that? And that's the voice in our minds that talks, and it's like that quiet music playing in the background that we sometimes lose awareness of it. It's just so habitual. So we have to start changing that voice. We have to start taking time for ourselves. So by specifically, I mean by doing things like resting, meditating, exercising, taking care of our minds and our bodies and our health and our wellness. Those things are all taking time for ourselves, putting ourselves first, and allowing ourselves to heal mind, body, and spirit. So these are a lot of the things that I want you to start doing in order to break the habit of the codependency triangle. The final thing, go ahead.
I just, by writing that, I like that you said body, mind, and spirit. because we all think when we feel angry, it's a feeling, but it's in our mind. And you taught me it's a brain thing. And then physically also it comes out with like physical action and kicking or pushing or whatever. So, and it doesn't give us a relief when we do it. I feel more it increases it. So then by hitting something, it's really not that now suddenly the anger is gone. It's more, it feeds it. It feels good. So
right.
now
What you're saying is very, very valuable. A lot of people do feel relief when they use explosive forms of anger because they need relief from the pain that they're feeling. So there's a lot of ways people do that. The extreme version of that might be something like cutting yourself or harming yourself in some way. And what you get is you get immediate relief, but then you're exactly what you described is what happens. You get a lingering feeling that drives the underlying anger, self-pity, aggression, and there's a lot of components that go on. So when we're deeply triggered at that level of rage or anger or shame, I'm going to give you a little brain science. The deep limbic system in our brain is the part that processes emotions, and above the deep limbic system is the basal ganglia. And so when the basal ganglia gets really over responsive, we're going to experience higher levels of anxiety, of depression, of sleeplessness, of agitation. And so the more frequently we are triggered at the deep limbic system, the more frequently our basal ganglia becomes hyperactive. And now we're getting a chronic stress response in our central nervous system. And so being on this codependency triangle, it does have a physiological response, which means that our cortisol levels are higher. That's where we hear about people can be affected in terms of weight and sex drive related to cortisol levels. This is all connected. When it comes to holistic well-being, you can't separate the mind, body, and spirit. And that may sound, that's why it's so important when I talk about these things and I say it's so important to take care of all of the parts of us. It's because the things that we talk about in therapy or on these shows, it absolutely has a physiological effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, Darren, if you're staying in the codependency triangle for a long time, it changes you too. So you become more and more the person you are.
You got it. More and more the person you are not is what you just said. And that is absolutely true, because what we're doing is we're moving further and further away from our core spiritual nature or our core energetic nature, whatever resonates for our listeners out there, whichever belief system works for you. Our core energetic or spiritual nature is one that doesn't need to defend or protect. It's one that is in balance and is just content knowing that it is what it is, that we don't need to judge things and we don't need to be in chronic fear or anger. Everything comes and goes. That's our core nature, is to just be. And the more that we're on the triangle, the more angry, defensive, shut down, hypersensitive, and yes, it does move us away from our true selves. So with that being said, we've talked about things to not do. We've talked about the things to start doing. And now I want to remind you guys, the fourth thing is to just keep swimming. And if you don't know, I'm a Disney fanatic. I just brought my daughter there for the first time this weekend. Super exciting, good time this weekend. And Dory from Finding Nemo, she says, just keep swimming. And that is the truth through all of this, is that a lot of people give up when they don't get instant results. And this codependency triangle is a habit just like any other habit. And so what it takes to break it is consistency. So if you don't get an immediate response that you're looking for in your relationships, when you start to shift some of these behaviors, you have to be willing to be patient and acknowledge yourself for the steps that you're making and the growth that's happening. And you have to be willing to stick in there and not give up no matter what. Don't give up. and trust yourself and trust the process that as you keep practicing this, it's going to get easier and easier, that the more that you use these steps, the more you're going to recognize the times that you get invited onto the triangle. And instead of having to get off, then you'll start to learn not to even accept the invitation to get onto the triangle. But that comes with practice, just like anything. So the steps go in order for a reason, and they do require practice. And over time, if you just keep swimming, then your relationships will heal, and you will find yourself at peace, and you will find your relationships to be more enjoyable, especially if you focus on surrounding yourself with other people who have the same goals and support you in this endeavor. So if that means making new friends that are supportive, or if it means finding new groups of people that are like-minded and want this same thing for themselves, it makes it a lot more enjoyable as you're trying to break these old habits, because you'll have a lot of people that are in your corner cheering you on and supporting you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I cannot see how you can go through that without guidance, honestly, to hold the consistency and to be reminded from time to time. Because God, I told you, I think a few blabs ago, I read so many books about relationships, and in my brain, I knew it all. And then you come into the situation and then you react totally in the old way. And you do it again and again and again, because you know better, but emotionally,
Yep.
The trigger catches you.
And I told you a story a couple weeks ago, I think on another show, that, you know, it had been a couple weekends ago, and I was hanging out with my friends, and we saw something happen at a bar, and it totally, we were sitting at a restaurant down the way, but it totally triggered me and invited me on the triangle. I wanted to fix somebody else's problems, and I put myself and my husband in danger because I wanted to fix it. I wanted to make peace, and that wasn't my job, but I got emotionally triggered and I jumped right on that triangle. So it does take consistency and practice. And, you know, my first move that Monday morning was to reach out to my support system and to say, hey, I need to process this. And I definitely got some feedback that was really, really helpful. So yeah, there's, you know, can be major events like that, and it can be small things, you know, that trigger us to jump on the triangle, but it definitely helps to have a support team. Yeah. So the bottom line here is that we want to start living from our hearts instead of living from the triangle, a little shape analogy there. And if there's anything that I've said here that resonates with you or that you'd like to speak with me about further, I invite you to reach out to me. Please send me an email. Check out my website, dawnwigginstherapy.com. You can send me an email or call me. We can.
Let me post your free consult.
Wonderful. So there's a page on my website that's called an on-the-house consult, and that's an opportunity for you to set up an appointment, a 30-minute phone appointment, so we can get to know each other a little bit, and you can ask any questions that you might have about therapy, and that we can identify any particular goals that you have. So please feel free. I love comments on the blab shows and the blog posts. And I'm always grateful to those of you that are out there that are listening, especially if you watch all the way to the end. It's impressive.
Absolutely. And I just posted your about page too, because I think it's so important that people get to know your vision too, and you have your vision in your about
Thanks,
page.
Dagmar.
So you're welcome, because you have a very unique vision for me as a therapist. Like, I never met a therapist.
I'm always grateful when you say that.
No, it's just
Thank you so much for your kind words. You're definitely one of those people that is part of my support system that helps me be the therapist that I am. So I'm eternally grateful to you and to everyone watching. This blab show has become an incredible way for me to stay inspired and in love with what I do, finding a different way to share the message. And so I'm grateful to all of you that are out there and that are willing to support the show and to share it with the world. And if you missed it live, please check back, because it will get posted both on my YouTube channel, and you can also replay it here on Blab or find it on my website, dawnwigginstherapy.com.
Yep, absolutely.
So thank you, everyone, for
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks,
so much
Dagmar, for being
me.
my co-host. And I wish you all a wonderful day.
Thank you, Dawn. And I'm very excited about next Monday. The topic's getting better and better and better. So it's interesting. I had no clue what's all available
not
out there.
Been inspired with next Monday's show, so it will be it's a mystery still to me and to you, but I will let you know as soon as it comes to me. All right, thanks so much.
100%. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye. You too. Bye.